The 2025 Nobel Prize for Literature was just announced. The winner is Laszlo Krasznahorkai, or in Hungarian, where you say the last name first and the first name last, Krasznahorkai Laszlo. I grew up speaking Hungarian, and that name is hard for even me to pronounce. And his prose, even though I'm a writer, is hard for me to read. This guy writes in long, turgid sentences. Apparently, his next book that he's working on is going to be 400 pages in one long, endless sentence with one period at the end. I have been struggling and working hard as a writer for decades to not do what this guy has done. And he's done it successfully. Critical acclaim. Now the Nobel Prize, you can't get any bigger or higher than that. And he writes sentences that go for pages. Well, who am I to judge? To each their own. But I bet this guy's worked at it. This guy wakes up and he is his art. His art is him. This guy, likely, despite my allergy to his entire style, does not fuck around. Good for Laszlo. Hello and welcome to the Bald and Bloviating podcast. I'm your Bald and Bloviating host, Mookie Spitz. And today's topic is Picasso or asshole. My goal here is to differentiate an artist from a hack. And as I alluded to, I think Laszlo, by any stretch, is an artist, even if I might think that his prose sucks. And what constitutes him being an artist isn't so much winning the Nobel Prize for Literature, but it's simply waking up every morning and doing what he does. Art is hard work. Art is a lifestyle. You're an artist if you do art. You are a hack if you do other things and spend most of your time talking about doing your art rather than doing your art. All of us at one point in our lives have had aspirations. We want to be an astronaut. We want to write the great American novel. We want to travel the world. We want to cure cancer. That's a natural part of really the transition from childhood to adulthood. It's that crossover point between creative play and the realities of adulthood with accountability, responsibility, a focus, a purpose, a mission in our lives. And that crossover point lends itself well to this kind of idealistic thinking. It can be excruciating. How many people do you know sitting around in coffee shops talking about Schopenhauer? Well, if you've had a humanities degree, then chances are you are one of those people. And even if your degree was in engineering or you became a medical doctor, you no doubt have had flashes of this kind of inspirational aspiration. And it carries over into adulthood in ways where deep down inside, a lot of folks have this idea that when they get a chance, when time and resources allow, they will get back to their dream. It's the plan A, plan B kind of thing. Plan A is for me to write that great American novel, and plan B is, well, if I devote myself to this and I can't pay the rent, or if I start a family, or if I have all of the burdens of adulthood that demand most of my time and attention, then I will put my writing, my art, to the side and get to it eventually. And the converse of that is when you talk to people who have these kind of goals, they'll say, I don't have time to be a writer, and leave it at that. That's to say that if I had time, then of course I would be a writer. But I call total bullshit on that. And I've been as guilty as anyone else for plan being my real passion in life, which is not only to be a writer, but as you can see here, be a bloviator. I just like to talk. I love turning a hot mic on in a cold room and just letting an unseen audience have it. That makes me happy. That turns me on. Similarly, I love frantically typing on a keyboard without any feeling or goal of anyone necessarily consuming whatever the hell it is I spew forth. I rant on TikTok and Instagram on video. I express my point of view. People will love me. People will hate me. Videos will go viral. Videos will stagnate. I really don't care. And I mean it. And the reason that I mean it, and you can believe me, is because I keep doing it. And I keep doing it to an extent and with an enthusiasm that belies my focus on nothing but the creation of content itself. Am I, by that definition, an artist? I don't know. I'll leave that to the judgment of the audience that I ostensibly don't pay attention to or even really care about. What I'm trying to get to here, though, is this differentiation between Picasso and an asshole. And Picasso, just to illustrate the complement of that pair, worked non-stop. He didn't sit around in coffee shops talking about Schopenhauer. The guy was, from the second he woke up, usually from the second he passed out at night, working on stuff. Apparently, he's got about 50,000 or more pieces that are out there, ranging in modalities from sculptures to pottery to watercolor to oils. He went through every phase and every mode and every style, from almost photographic realism in his rendering to, as we know, abstraction, cubism. The dude was on the move. Somebody asked him why he did what he did. He said he can't help but do it. That, to me, is an artist. When you cut the bullshit and you just go for it. It's taken me too long to finally let the Picasso out. I'm not saying for a second that I got his talent, his depth, or his breadth, but I have his enthusiasm, and it's been transformative. I still need to pay the rent. I can't commit myself 100% of the time to doing this, but here's the thing. Here's the essence of my rant today. I have made time because I have no choice but to make the time. And for years and years of my life, I put my plan A as plan B with the excuse, and in a sense, a justifiable excuse, that I really had a family to raise. Okay, but I still could have squeezed it in, is part of my point. For decades, I was a hack. For decades, I wasn't a Picasso, I was an asshole. I was someone who felt deep down inside that I had this creative fire burning, and I was unable or unwilling to let it out. On the surface of things, this was the number one pervasive, asphyxiating, self-destructive feeling that put me in that position. And that was not liking and not accepting my own output. I was self-conscious of it. I didn't think it was good enough. I didn't really want to share it because I felt I could always do better. Everything I did was always an experiment toward some kind of future state when some kind of magic would happen and I would discover my style, my unique voice, and then share it with the world. So I kept circling the airport for years and years and years with my creative writing, with my creativity, thinking this whole time that I was taking baby steps to eventually run a marathon in some indeterminate, unknown, unknowable, and unlikely future. I was kicking the can down the road. I wasn't a Picasso. I was an asshole. I was a hack. Things got done. The kids didn't go hungry. We didn't get evicted. I was a responsible and fairly competent employee, worker, consultant, strategist, and I continue to do a lot of this work. The point, though, is now, arguably, for the first time in my life, I have learned how to juggle personal responsibilities, accountability with my primary mission in life, which, since I was a kid, is bloviating, is also bloviating within some kind of dramatic framework. I love telling stories, and I'm telling stories. So I bring this up within the context of Laszlo here winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I'm conscientiously trying to differentiate style and output from the raw passion and focus which defines an artist. And again, differentiate that from a hack who talks about doing, occasionally dips his or her toes into the doing, but doesn't have the fortitude, the courage, or the wherewithal to just go for it. And the excuse is hyper perfectionism. My shit just isn't good enough. Beneath that is a feeling that I don't want to make the leap. I don't have the courage to commit myself to the dream, to living the life that I love and loving it. That's a big step. I know a guy, and on his Zoom calls, he's got his whole library behind him. And it's staged, it's set up. A lot of people have their living room now. I remember being on a project during the pandemic, and it was the global digital communications leader of a major pharmaceutical company. And the guy is on a Zoom call with his kid in the background and a dog and some kind of beach ball bouncing up and down. I know it was a pandemic and Zoom was kind of a real thing, but who gives a shit, right? Just, we're communicating at this point directly. We're both home. You don't need to fucking pose in front of your goddamn library to make it a point that you're really just doing this business stuff to cush your intellectualism. That you might just be a talking head on this call working on some project, but there's depth and breadth to your intellectual being. Now, not surprisingly, this guy has aspirations for being a writer. This guy loves to talk about writing in a very critical kind of capacity. This guy has posted a handful of explorations on Medium, maybe other places. And his stuff is an experiment. I see what he's doing. And I don't mean to pick on this guy, but I see myself and my own foibles and my own mistakes and frankly failures expressed vividly in the guise of someone who's trying too hard and not enough. And of course, I can't communicate with this guy. I can't share creative ideas. We can't co-create anything, even though we've known each other for 15 years. Because I'm cranking the shit out. And he's on Zoom calls in front of his library posting literary experiments. Is he jelly? I think it's a combination of being jealous, but also being judgmental. The same energy that he puts into torpedoing his own success as a writer or as an artist is projected onto me, a writer, an artist who's actually fucking doing it. You get this all the time, and you get it especially from people you ostensibly have a lot in common with. It's too close for comfort. Again, not to pick on him, not to sound too judgmental, but he's an asshole, and I'd rather be a Picasso. And I reiterate that it's not even about the quality of work. When we say hack, someone is a hack, then it naturally describes suboptimal, shitty output. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the quality of the output. That's why I opened with the Hungarian who won the fucking Nobel Prize for literature this year. I don't like his output. I think it's a Nietzschean decadent expression of art. Almost by definition, it's utterly self-indulgent, seems to be removed from the world, and puts his audience through the paces. Like, I'm such a fucking genius that you need to decrypt what I am writing for you. And again, I know that it's a style. There's an entire style of philosophy, the hermeneutic approach, embodied by Edmund Husserl and the phenomenologists, where they wrote like this. Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason is dense. It's hard. It's convoluted because he believed, and writers like this, thinkers like this, believe that through the arduous struggle of trying to figure out what the hell they're talking about, you're taking the same kind of journey with them. You're working hard to get at the truth, and you really need to wrestle yourself into a state to get at the truth by going through these gymnastics. I get it. It's its own thing. And the libertarian in me, even politically and culturally, is like, let it loose. Do everything that you want to do your way. Be like Burger King. Just have it your way. Let it out. Be all you can be. You probably can't help yourself. That's how you're wired. Is there truth? Is there absolute truth? Is there an absolute standard about what's great and what sucks? I don't know. We each think so because we look at it through the lens of our own aesthetic and even moral lens. That again was the genius of Nietzsche. Beyond good and evil isn't just a morality play. It goes to the essence of art itself and is fueled by it, because you can't really differentiate morality from art, from philosophy, even from science for that matter. But I digress. Are you Picasso or are you an asshole? And I have just found that personal happiness for me is figuring out that distinction and going for it. And this isn't a pep talk for you or a pep talk for me for that matter. And I'm not trying to pound my chest here. I'm merely celebrating this revelation that took me too long to figure out that it's ship it or zip it, like they say in tech. If you got a new app, you got a new device, you're revolutionizing hardware, then don't give a fireside chat with the CEO for 45 minutes when you're talking nonstop bullshit. Don't hedge, don't lie, don't stall, just shut up or put up. And I think the same thing goes with doing what you're passionate about. We all make a million excuses, and we sacrifice sometimes the best years of our lives by not going for it. We get used to our lives and our lifestyle, and it's an easy trap to fall into. And it leads often to cataclysmic disaster. It's happened to me, and I've bloviated about it. It's happening to a lot of people I know, and it's exacerbated by the uncertainty and zaniness of the political and cultural climate that we're living in right now. It's really, really hard to grow up, going back to the childhood adult transition. We lose sight of what it means to play. The intrinsic value of what we do is superseded by the pragmatic reality of being forced to be accountable and responsible. And then added on top of that is the societal judgment, which is nonstop, and the differentiation of whether you're a winner or a loser. And this gets so integrated into our psyche, into our bodies and our very being, that once you're on the path, you've invested so much time and energy and psychic wherewithal that you're stuck. Where do you go from there? You've got a career, you've got a flow of income. Arguably, most importantly, you've got an identity. You are what you do, and what you do characterizes the essence and totality of your being. So then things get shaken up. Things don't work out. Or through the lens of what I'm bloviating about here is you've made sacrifices to do what you're doing to be a success, to support a family, to support yourself. And that has opportunity costs. The opportunity costs usually are that playful creativity. And these opportunity costs start to catch up with each and every one of us. Often to the point where we completely forget what it's like to play. We forget what it's like to intrinsically enjoy ourselves. So many folks who find themselves, after a successful career, retired with a chunk of change, literally don't know what to do with themselves. They've all but forgotten what it's like to gaze at the world with wonder and to participate in it with games and with play. And that's tragic. The other side of that coin is the sacrifice amounting to nothing. There's a converse or complementary mess that people might get themselves into when they commit to something that might be more creative, might be more risky. You start a company, you start ranting online, you do what is unexpected, and you make that leap, and then you don't get the external reinforcement of monetary success or the approval, let alone kudos, of your peers and society as a whole. The dream is destroyed almost before it gets out of the gate. And then you've got nothing. You've given up, air quote, your career. You've made a move, and that hasn't really worked out, at least according to the metrics that you've ascribed to it. And then you're totally fucked. You've blown your responsibilities, and you haven't realized your dream. You're a Picasso who wakes up to find himself an asshole, and then you're totally lost. But I think that's a false construct. And it begs the question of what it really means to be a Picasso. And this goes back to that intrinsic value that we find in simply the doing. when you dive in and you dive in deep and then you live the life. And I've seen folks give up over and over again. An illustrator who can't even look at his own drawings. A musician in a band who throws in the towel on their gigs because the excitement isn't being reciprocated at the local dive bar. You see it over and over again where people try and then toss in the towel, or they persist and they persist, and you can tell that they're burning out. And now we have AI as yet another excuse to either give it up creatively or just wallow in the redundance and meaninglessness of creating in an environment where the creative process takes seconds and the output is exponentially larger than we can even imagine. In a creative universe where everything is possible and everything is being tried almost in real time, then what's the purpose of putting pen to paper, plucking the strings of an instrument, or doing much of anything at all? If a novel can be written in a nanosecond by a moron and fake bands are rising to the top of the Spotify list, then what is there left to do? You're going to make so many sacrifices and you take so many risks for what? Well, none of these are really valid questions if you mean what you do and you do what you mean. Do you really like creating stuff? Do you really like the raw experience of bloviating into a hot mic or creating some pottery or writing a screenplay? It doesn't matter. We're forgetting the essential lived experience that is the heart and soul of being an artist, of being a Picasso instead of an asshole, and rediscovering your own childhood bliss at a world you don't understand, a world that kind of freaks you out, but one that is huge and loaded with surprises and endless possibilities. That's what it's all about. If you look at every possible permutation, whether it's the Sora 2 app that just came out that dynamically generates AI-driven video, all of a sudden you put yourself in cinematically realistic settings, both real and imaginary, all driven and limited only by prompts, or whether you're chat GPTing and a host of other tools we're not even really thinking about now, already on the drawing board for OpenAI and these companies with trillions of dollars flying all over the place because everyone knows this is the future, for better or for worse. None of that really matters. And if nothing else, if you're slick and adept, you can infuse your own creativity with the super firepower of an internet worth of literally millions, if not billions, of people playing around with these permutations. At the heart and soul of it is a heart and is a soul. At the end of the day, you know you're a Picasso and not an asshole if you love to create and you also love to work. I think these two are inexorably linked. There's something about ease of use that ruins things. Jack White of the White Stripes was quoted as saying that ease of use is the real nemesis of the creative artist. And he was right. If creating something amazing is only a prompt away, no energy, no passion has gone into that creativity, and the output is as immediate and disposable as what the input was. We're human beings and we feel it. We feel when energy goes in and then we take it back out. It's as if the thermodynamics of the universe is the final and absolute judgment on art and on passion and on what makes things juicy in our hedonistic pursuit of indulgent pleasure and pain. Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, fueled by his awesome short story, I think it was called Don't Eat Before You Read This, about the cauldron of sweat and sharp knives and heat and grease and claustrophobic discomfort that is a typical restaurant's kitchen. And in stark contrast to that, you have the dining room where everything is so pleasant and the meals come out beautiful and well prepared. And as a diner, you're sitting on your ass at the pinnacle of luxury and comfort. You are coddled. Well, the one seems impossible with the other. The horrific pain and suffering of the sous-chef translates organically and naturally to the bliss of the recipient of that meal out in the dining room. And you see this pattern over and over again in literature. It's a yin-yang kind of dance and balance. I believe in Islam, heaven and hell are right next to each other, and there's a very narrow wall between them. And when you die, your first task is to walk along this very narrow wall. And one wrong move propels you to one side or the other. And I believe your sins and your blessings weigh you one way and the other. So if hell is to your left and heaven is to your right, then your sins are piled on your left shoulder and your blessings on your right. And if your blessings outweigh your sins, then you plummet into heaven. And if it's the other way around, then you're going to burn in hell forever. And what makes this model, this paradigm of iniquity and joy, so masterful is that heaven and hell are literally right next to each other, and the wall that you're walking is thin. So that makes a balancing act difficult, makes it easy to plummet one way or the other with an imbalance. And here's the thing: the sufferers in hell can literally hear the screams and agony. Or did I have this backwards? The sufferers in hell can literally hear the joy and celebration of folks on the other side in heaven. And the folks in heaven who are rejoicing and hearing their favorite song over and over again can hear the torment and agony and screams of those in hell. And that makes it more awful for the people in hell because they can hear people partying right next door. And it makes it even more awesome for the people in heaven who can hear the horrific pain and suffering right next door, accentuating their own bliss. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And filtered through the lens of what I'm bloviating about here, I think that's the essence of art, which is the two have to come together. You know you're a Picasso and not an asshole if you are busting ass. Frank Zappa had advice for young artists, young musicians, and he said it's two things. It's hard and you just need to keep going. That's it. just keep going. Don't stop. Keep going. It's going to be hard. It's always hard. And in that blood, sweat, and tears, the sous chef in Bourdain's kitchen, the French fryer, is the engine of the bliss in the dining room. And working your ass off and making sacrifices for your art is the only way to get the most out of that art. You're squeezing it, it's coming out of you, it's forced out of you. And people can feel it, they taste that steak. On Star Trek, you had a technology like what's used in the transporters to synthetically make food. I remember reading that bullshit somewhere. It wasn't really on the show. I didn't really go into it if I remember. But the idea there for the Star Trek Trekkie fandom is that you didn't have to kill animals to have meat, and you didn't have to harm anything living because you could synthesize the end product in an instant in these ovens on the Enterprise. You just press a button and it assembles the molecules together like it does in the transporter when you go from the transporter room to the planet and then back again. It disassembles you, it transfers the information, and then reassembles you on the surface of the planet. So if you want a cheeseburger, it just, has the information for a cheeseburger, and then it takes the raw constituents and makes it for you. No animals suffer. But that creates a soulless reality. And do you really appreciate that cheeseburger if the grease and the blood and all the sauciness didn't come from the horrific process that today produces it? I'm not an advocate for mistreating animals. For a while, I tried to be a vegetarian, and that was a fail because I felt bad for said animals. But the point I'm making is back to being a Picasso or being an asshole. You're an asshole if you think it comes easy. You're an asshole if you just plug shit into a prompt, it comes out, and then boom, that's it. And you're a Picasso if you work your ass off. And it doesn't even matter what the output is. You could suck. You could suck. It's the lived experience of playing. It's the lived experience of working and playing, being creative, rocking it. Day in, day out. You're not sipping espresso and talking about Schopenhauer. You're going full Nietzsche, beyond good and evil, cranking this shit out. And it doesn't matter who says what, whether you're making any money or losing it, you're just doing it. And I think there's no better way to live. If you have a ton of manic energy and you want to make and keep your life as satisfying as you can make it, then this is a path for you. And I in no way cast judgment on anyone who isn't this crazy and obsessed. And that doesn't make you an asshole if you're not a Picasso. It makes you an asshole if you think you're a Picasso without doing the work, without having the gumption, the grit, and the courage to relentlessly pursue what you love to do each and every day. And that becomes the essence of who you are and what you do. And again, go play golf, go sail around the world, go start a bike shop, go do whatever makes you happy. But if you're going for this art stuff, if you want to be a creator, you gotta live the life and you gotta take the heat. And getting punched in the face by being a contrarian, by people not understanding you, by not really even being able to monetize your stuff can be a huge advantage. because then it's proof positive to yourself and to the universe that you're doing the Picasso thing, at least in your own damn mind. Make it a part of your life and live that life you love. Love the life you live and keep going. Keep going until you got no choice but eventually to become an asshole again. Thanks for listening. More to come.